would I ever have imagined sharing the stage with best-selling author Pam Jenoff and Jane Feld, who was kind enough to interview me for a newspaper article in the Jewish Community Voice when I published my first memoir, Rosie and Me. I'm delighted to be here tonight to talk about my second memoir, Vignettes on Life, Reflections of a Septuagenarian. I marvel every time I say my second memoir, because the idea of writing even a first memoir was always seemed out of my reach. I published Rosie and Me a month before my 73rd birthday, and Vignettes on Life 2 months after I turned 79. You might say that I was a late bloomer, but I was in good company. Grandma Moses didn't even pick up a paintbrush until she was 77, and Sarah, who was barren her entire life, didn't give birth to Isaac until she was 90. As the title of my new book suggests, Vignettes on Life, Reflections of a Septuagenarian is a compilation of decades worth of reflections and life lessons gleaned from more than 4 decades worth of journal entries written by a woman now approaching her 80th year. These journal entries had been written contemporaneously, and while rereading them, I realized that each reflected the challenges, concerns, fears, and insecurities I was experiencing, as well as the achievements, exhilaration, happiness, and contentment that accompanied each stage of my life. It dawned on me that these reflections would be of interest to others, no matter what stage of their lives they found themselves. Many people have asked me what inspired me to write this book. In order to answer this question, I must go back to what inspired me to write my first book, Rosie and Me. My mother, Rosie, was a woman who was liberated long before it was in vogue. She persevered despite chronic pain and disabilities from a myriad of physical ailments that began with the early onset of severe psoriatic rheumatoid arthritis at the age of 28. What made this seemingly ordinary woman extraordinary was not that she suffered from a progression of multiple disabilities, but rather how she dealt with the adverse effects of her ailments. Her goal in life was to be happy, and she achieved this goal with her unbridled optimism, bravery, and positive attitude. People who admired and loved hearing her advice and positivity may have felt bad when they saw her suffering, but they never felt sorry for her. They thrived on her positivity, cheerfulness, and optimism. They wanted to be around her, as did I. But I didn't spend time with my mother out of a sense of obligation. I liked being with my mother. I marveled at her common sense, sound advice, and enormous optimism. She was the topic of many of my journal entries, and after she died, I dealt with my grief by writing incessantly about her. The words poured out from my heart, and I spent weeks writing morning, noon, and night about her. My pen in hand was merely a conduit, as the many thoughts I had in my mind filled the blank pages of the journal in front of me. But it took me almost 20 years to finally realize my dream of publishing a memoir that celebrated the wisdom, bravery, and optimism of my mother, while at the same time sharing the unbreakable bond I had with her. Someone aptly described my book as a love letter to my mother. The book was published in 2017, 16 years after my mother died. It was then that I fully appreciated what Nelson Mandela meant when he said, "It always seems impossible until it's done." Hey, I was on a roll. Successfully publishing one memoir, I felt confident that there would be another one in the works. I still had hundreds of journal entries to tap into, and rereading these entries that had been written during different stages throughout my life, I believed that I had many life lessons to share. After all, I started writing them in my early 40s, and now I was pushing 80. But because I learned the hard way that procrastination is the nemesis of any writer, there was no way that I would procrastinate as long as I had in publishing my first book. First of all, I didn't have that much time left. But more important, I saw that it was possible because I had already done it once. A book based on the life of a woman approaching her 80th year is filled with a wide range of messages, too many to cover in this short period of time. I have summed up the main message on the back of the book. The author's goal is to impress upon younger readers the importance of not being late for the dance, and to encourage older readers to realize that it is never too late to follow your heart. Nelson Mandela's quote, "It always seems impossible until it's done," is a constant reminder of what we can achieve if we are determined and motivated to persevere. Self-doubt, uncertainty, and negativity are our own self-imposed enemies and must be recognized and overcome before they paralyze us in such a way that prevents us from following our passion. Vignettes on Life will not only inspire readers of all ages to follow their dreams, but will also share ageless wisdom with them to help guide them through this complicated maze we call life.